guys, it's Tori, and I'm going to make this introduction today, even though really this vlog is going to start tomorrow. So if you watched my last vlog, which was basically a vlog mostly of me reading Elantris, you will know that I was considering doing a themed reading vlog for my next one. I originally was going to do one where in that vlog I ended up going book shopping and I was going to get books based on the cover and read those, but I just discovered that I could not do it. Like, I could not spend money on books that I didn't know anything about, that I didn't feel like for certain I was going to enjoy. So, not that you ever know for certain, obviously, but there's some books that I just have more excitement over and better feeling towards, and I could not get myself to spend money on books that I didn't know much about, especially when I have so many unread books still on my shelves. So that went out the window. And then after that fiasco in my last vlog, I mentioned I was hoping to do a themed reading vlog, although then I got in a Brandon Sanderson fix and I was like, well, maybe I'll just be reading Brandon Sanderson in my next vlog. It was all over the place. But I realized after finishing that vlog that I actually have a 3-day weekend this weekend. I am working full-time and it's in retail, so it's kind of a situation where my day off each week changes. A lot of the time I do get Saturdays off, but sometimes it ends up being usually Thursdays, sometimes other days. So the week I'm in right now, which today is Friday the 18th, I have tomorrow, Saturday off, and then next week with Thanksgiving I get 2 days off because we are closed Thanksgiving, and then I still get another day during the week off, so I get Monday off, which is really exciting, which means I have that 3-day weekend like I said. So I thought it would be really fun to do a reading for 24 hours vlog, so not necessarily a 24-hour readathon, but more like I'm going to set a stopwatch and read for 24 hours within these 3 days. And I actually did decide to create a TBR that's a little more themed. Specifically, it is winter themed. So let's go into what I'm planning to read. I should also mention, I did decide to do this. I am still intending to read more Brandon Sanderson soon. I just am waiting for an Arcanum Unbounded to come in, and it won't come in. Actually, it might come in this Sunday, so it's possible I'll read a short story out of that for this vlog if I have time. But in between now and then, I wanted to have some sort of ideas of some things I can read. So my Wintery themed TBR contains 3 different books. So the first one is one I've already started and will probably read a little bit today as well before tomorrow, but that is The Winter of the Witch by Katherine Arden. This is book 3 in the Winter Night trilogy, and I refuse to let a year go by between the second book and this one. This is the final book in the Winter Night trilogy, and I refuse to let a year go by between reading the second book and reading this one. Unlike with the first and second, I did let a year pass before I read the second one, even though I did really want to get to it. So anyway, all that being said, I want to make sure I get to this before the end of the year. That is my goal. So I intend to read this. This will be the first thing I read for this readathon. And if I remember correctly, both the first and the second I flew through pretty quickly. I think the first bits of them I was a little slow with, but I eventually got to a point where I just flew through the rest. And based on where this is starting, I think I'm just going to be able to fly through this pretty quickly. So very excited to get into this, finish a series. It's been so long since I finished a series, so very excited to get to this. The next book I have here for my wintry theme is Galatea by Madeline Miller. This is mostly just due to the cover, the blue on the cover. I just think it looks very wintry, even though I'm pretty sure the story doesn't really have anything to do with winter. I've heard really great things about this. I love Madeline Miller, at least I love Circe by her, and I figured, you know what? May as well add in a little bit of a short one for this readathon so I can feel good about myself that I finish a little bit more than one book. Although hopefully I will get through all 3 of these books that I'm going to mention, but we'll see what happens. The last book on my list for this winter themed vlog is A Brilliant Night of Stars and Ice by Rebecca Connolly. This is kind of a local author situation, and this is a work of historical fiction about the Titanic. So we followed 2 different perspectives. One is on the Titanic itself, and the second is the perspective of the captain of the Carpathia, which was the one ship that responded to the Titanic's distress calls and was able to help the survivors. Haven't heard anything about this, honestly, but it was available in the store that I actually work at, and so I was able to get a good deal. Actually, I think I got this one for free because I think that we have like a store library where you can read recent releases, and I think this was one that I won an award to be able to just pick something from that library to keep, and I think this is what I picked. Otherwise, I think I might have just been gifted a gift card as a reward and I used it on this. Can't really remember, but anyway, I have it and I'm excited to get to it. It's not very long, which is perfect for this readathon, and yeah, I'm just excited. I'm glad I have a pretty good variety between these 3 books. We have obviously fantasy, and this one's fantasy, but it's like Greek mythology, which just has a different feeling from other fantasy books, and then we have historical fiction. So, really great mix there. I will also briefly, really quick, mention a few other books that I may read a little, well, a couple that I for sure will read a little bit of, and then another one that I may end up, it's my audiobook right now, so I may end up listening to that if I find myself in a position to. First of all, I am still working on Middlemarch by George Eliot. I have a certain amount of pages I need to get through each day, so I will be continuing with this. I've mostly been listening to the audiobook for it. It just has been the most effective way to ensure that I'm able to read other things besides this throughout the month. So I'll probably be doing that. Maybe I'll listen to it like while I'm getting ready in the mornings, stuff like that for this weekend. But yes, I will be continuing to work on this. I will also be reading The Wife of Bath from the Canterbury Tales. I'm slowly making my way through this. I have planned it out, scheduled it out, so I will finish by the end of the year. It is possible I may also get to The Pardoner's Tale, I think is the one after The Pardoner's Tale is before The Wife of Bath, and I'm actually reading that tonight before my weekend, so that won't count necessarily in this vlog. But I will be reading that, and then The Wife of Bath I will be reading tomorrow, and then the one after it is The Friar's Tale. That one I may end up reading Monday, depending on, I think I scheduled it for Monday originally, so there's a good chance I'll probably read that. So a little bit of this will be read, some of Middlemarch. That's what I'm reading. Like I said, it's possible I'll also read, I can't remember what it's called, but the next story, the short story that's after Elantris within Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere publication order, since that is the next thing I intend to read. But yeah, I wanted to do this introduction so you can know what I'm reading, and then tomorrow I can just jump right into it and I'll just let you know how everything's going. Hey guys, so it is Monday. I did not film any clips discussing what I've been reading the past couple days. I planned to, and then it just didn't happen as per usual with me. But I have done a couple of things, so let's just discuss that. Unfortunately, I have not read as much as I was hoping I would. It's been about 11 hours worth of reading that I've done, so I don't think I'm going to make it to 24 hours. I had hoped that I would, but with how things have been going for me, and I still have to like edit and upload a vlog today so it can go out tomorrow and things like that, I just don't think it's gonna happen. But we'll just end up seeing how many hours I'm able to get in this weekend. That being said, I do still have hope that I'll actually be able to finish my 3 books that I mentioned originally for this video. So let's start with the one thing that I have finished, and that is The Winter of the Witch by Katherine Arden. I really enjoyed this. I ended up giving it 5 stars on Goodreads and then 4.75 on Storygraph. I don't really have a specific reason to not give it 5 stars on Storygraph as well. So frankly, I may change the rating, but for now, I just feel like there's like not that X factor for me that makes it feel like a 5-star read. However, it's possible it could end up on my favorites of the year, which would be crazy because I already have 2 books from this month alone that are going to be on my favorites of the year. I mean, one of them is Middlemarch, which I haven't finished yet, but I'm loving it. So I'm pretty much expecting that to be on my favorites of the year. Elantris is going to be on my favorites of the year. So it's it would be crazy for me to put all three, but it's possible I will. I just need to think more about it. I need to let this sit for a while, but I did give it 5 stars on Goodreads. And then, like I said, 4.75 on Storygraph, since I'm able to do decimals on there. This was just really beautiful and fun, and I feel like it was an incredible wrap up to this series. Sometimes I feel like with series, the last book may be dramatic and stuff, but it just doesn't connect well with the rest of the series, at least not in a super satisfying way to me. But this one really did. Like, it brought together that huge dramatic end battle scene kind of situation, but it still maintained that magical, mythical, legendary feel of the rest of the series, and I really appreciated that. Something I do also really like about this series, while I like fast-paced books, I tend to really love slow burn fantasy books, like fantasy stories that just let you enjoy the world and let you get to know the characters and their different struggles within this magical context. And then I like that when they pick up the pace, and I feel like Brandon Sanderson's really good at that. I feel like this series did that really well, but this series has that pretty writing that I really love, especially in fairy tale fantasy type stories. I also love how this allowed me to explore medieval Russia, which I have never learned about. I know very little about Russian history. That is something I'd like to change, but it's not something that I know much about besides post-Bolshevik Revolution. I know about that, but pre that event, I don't know very much about it. So it was kind of fun to explore this world of medieval Russia. We don't know a lot about it, and Katherine Arden addresses that in her author's note, but it was just fun to explore the mythology and legends that were very central to their religion and just their beliefs. And it was honestly just a delight. I really loved everything about it. I will also say the romance in this series actually contains a trope that I really don't like most of the time, but this is probably the first time I've ever seen it done in a way that I could appreciate. I don't feel like it's too much of a spoiler to basically say that it has to do with the idea of an immortal person falling in love with a mortal person who is a lot younger than them. So not only is this person immortal, but they also have already lived a long time, and then to have another mortal person, usually it's a girl, who is a lot younger, obviously, who's living a mortal life, have them fall in love. It just never, I hate it because I always feel like the immortal person would be more mature and wiser than this young girl, and so it just ends up feeling a little bit creepy and just weird. Like, why would you be interested in this young girl who is so immature? But I feel like in this, Vasya is honestly very mature, in a way that it feels mature. It's not like you're just being told that she's mature. And the immortal being in this book is written in a way where he's kind of changed recently, and that change makes it make a lot more sense that he would be falling for her, especially, and then that, combined with the fact that she is actually pretty mature and free-spirited, but she is very wise for her age and very aware of the world and how it works, while also being very confident in herself and her own choices, even if they go against what society would expect. And anyway, I really liked their dynamic. Most of the time I've learned recently, my favorite romances in books tend to be ones where their friendship and their romance grow at the same time. So there's not as many like passionate romances that I really love, but this is probably one of few that I just really liked it. So that was a lot of fun as well. And yeah, it was just a beautiful series, one I'd be totally willing to revisit in the future. In fact, I probably should reread the first one relatively soon. It's probably not going to be for a few years still, but it's been a little over a year since I read that, and I definitely have forgotten some things based on some things that happened in this one that I'm like, that was completely gone from my head. So anyway, really enjoyed this. So glad I finished this trilogy, and I will be keeping these books so I can revisit them in the future and give them to people who may want a good book recommendation from me. Also, I forgot at the beginning of this clip to apologize for the shadows from my glasses that are going to be going on and the just weird lighting in general. I just wanted to mix up my background a little bit for this, and I thought, I haven't done any in our library in this cozy chair, so here we are. Like I said, that is the only one I finished this weekend. However, you would have seen I did read The Wife of Bath, and I really liked it. Mostly I actually like her kind of prologue where we learn a little bit more about her and her past. She's very interesting, and she's probably the least caricatured of the individuals in the Canterbury Tales, and I really appreciate that about her. Honestly, her story is really uncomfortable to read, not going to lie. It was just not great. I didn't really love it. Although I will say it feels a little bit more like a story compared to some of the other stories in this book. Some of the other stories just feel like essays and discussions as opposed to like an actual story. So I appreciated that it was an actual story. I just think I prefer the prologue of The Wife of Bath, and I actually do have The Good Wife of Bath by, I can't remember the author's name. I'll try to remember to put it on the screen, but I do have that book. It recently came out this year, I believe, and it's like a retelling, so I think that could be fun to read sometime soon. It probably won't be for a little bit, but it is on my radar after reading that. I also have been working my way through Middlemarch, keeping up with that, and loving it. There's been the longing. The longing is just everything to me. There's few classics that build up the romantic tension for me the way this one has, and I just have adored it. I've absolutely loved it. In addition to just all of the characters just being interesting in their different dynamics, I'm not going to go too deep into it though, because I need to keep that to that vlog and keep the rest of these things to this vlog. So anyway, that it has happened. I also counted a little bit of my religious reading, I guess is what I can call it. My books that are focused on religion and my beliefs that I usually read on Sundays a little bit more. I did count that towards my time, but I'm not going to talk about that here because this is my place for just talking about every other book besides those. And then if you're interested in seeing reviews on what I read for religious books, you can follow me on Instagram. I post them there. So anyway, I did some of that, and then I did actually start Galatea last night by Madeline Miller. I literally only read like the first 10 pages because I just wanted to get this started. I ended up making the decision to watch a couple episodes of a show last night instead of reading. And so I was like, you know what? Let's at least start Galatea. So we can do that, and then I'll probably finish it today, and then hopefully, I think, like I said, I think it's very possible for me to finish A Brilliant Night of Stars and Ice because it's not very long. The writing, the font on it is very big, and I just feel like I'm going to really enjoy that one, and yeah, I think I'm going to be able to get through it really fast. So I think that's very possible. However, I do need to get through my Middlemarch reading for today. I think the time is like 10 something in the morning. I got up later because I stayed up late, and I just, it's that time of year when depression starts in again. I've been taking an antidepressant. That has helped a lot. It's been wonderful, but I still have moments where, I wake up in the morning and I'm like, I'm cozy. I don't really want to get up and deal with the day yet. So took a little longer this morning, but that is just fine. I am up now. We're doing good. So yes, I need to listen to / read Middlemarch this morning. I also need to read a Canterbury tale. I think I'm on the the Friar's Tale. I keep mixing up the partner and the friar. Anyway, the Friar's Tale, which is not as long as The Wife of Bath, so that should work out well. So yes, we'll be working on that, Galatea, Middlemarch, and then we'll get into A Brilliant Night of Stars and Ice. But like I said, I do need to edit my vlog for this last couple weeks and post that. So that's going to be my first thing that I'm doing today, and then we'll just see how the rest of the day goes. I don't have to work until 11:30 tomorrow, so I do have a little bit of time in the morning to sleep in, first of all. So if I stay up late, it will be doable, but also to maybe read a little bit more if I end up needing a little bit more time to finish the A Brilliant Night of Stars and Ice book. So yeah, we'll just see what happens. That's my plan for today, and we'll just, of course, take you along with me. guys, so it is actually Wednesday the 23rd. I did not finish this vlog yesterday like I intended to. I also did not get my 24 hours of reading in. I think I ended up at like between 14 and 15 hours by the end of Monday, so about 10 hours under. But I actually didn't finish A Brilliant Night of Stars and Ice, so I decided to just continue into Tuesday. So I took a screenshot of both my time for by the end of Monday, so here's where I was at that point, and then I did also take a screenshot after I had added in a bit on Tuesday to finish off that book. So here's that, although I would add about 30 minutes because I did listen to about 20 to 30 minutes of my audiobook, and I forgot to set the timer during that time. So about 20 to 30 minutes, but that was on Tuesday, so it wouldn't be counted in the first screenshot, just in this one, which I think it ended up being like, what was that, 17 hours? You can see it here, I can't remember. But I did want to wrap this up. So first of all, the thing I finished after I had finished The Winter of the Witch, and yeah, just my last clip, was Galatea by Madeline Miller. I ended up giving this 3.75 out of 5 stars. It was basically like a retelling of Pygmalion, if you know that myth. As a refresher, or for your information if you don't know that myth, basically it is the story of an artist who creates a beautiful sculpture of a woman, and one of the goddesses, Greek goddesses, I can't remember who, I think it was probably Artemis, but maybe it was someone else, ends up bringing this statue to life, and she becomes his wife, and they have a child together, and supposedly they live happily ever after. However, as is expected with Madeline Miller, she ends up taking a more feminist approach to it. It is a very, very short story, so definitely don't go into it expecting super well developed characters or anything, but for how short it was, honestly, I felt like the character work was really good. I felt like I really got to know Galatea, even in just this brief time with her. Not that obviously a whole novel I'd get to know her a lot better, but I was able to get a pretty clear picture of her and her experiences through this book. It is pretty harrowing in some ways because there's a lot of abusive things that are going on in her life, and so with her artist husband, and so it's kind of an intense read. The only reason it's not 4 stars is because there's just not that X factor that would make it 4 stars for me. I like short stories, but there's just something that didn't quite connect me with this in a way that made me feel like I could give it a 4 stars or higher. I did actually on Goodreads give it 4 stars, I just rounded it up, but on Storygraph I gave it 3.75, so just below 4 stars is kind of where I would put this, but it was a delight to read, and I would be willing to revisit it in the future. It just, yeah, for some reason didn't quite hit that for me. But I also feel like it's one that I will be thinking about for a long time after, so maybe in the future I'd up my rating just because I think it will stay with me, but we'll see. Then I read The Friar's Tale from Canterbury Tales. Not much to say about this. I did enjoy it. I thought it was a funny tale, basically about the devil. There's this evil, I think he's a summoner. Yes, he's a summoner who is very corrupt, and he tries to trick the devil, but then the devil kind of tricks him in return. And it was just kind of a fun story. But the next story is The Summoner's Tale, so I'm excited to see how those two stories speak to each other as they're kind of pointing fingers at each other. So anyway, that will be really fun. Yeah, so that's how I felt about that. Like I said, not much to say. But what I really need to discuss is A Brilliant Night of Stars and Ice by Rebecca Connolly. I really, really ended up enjoying this. As a refresher on what this is about, this follows 2 perspectives. It's focused on the Titanic. So the first perspective is the captain of the Carpathia. Then we also follow Kate Connolly, who was a real person in 3rd class on the Titanic, and she was a survivor of the sinking. The author chose to write about Kate Connolly because obviously they share a last name, but she hasn't been able to find any direct ancestral link with her. She just was interested in her because of that connection. I ended up giving this 4 stars, and the reason why it's not higher is because honestly the writing wasn't anything to rave about. In fact, there were certain pieces of dialogue in it that kind of were jarring and a little awkward. It just didn't flow very well. The characters just didn't feel super natural in the way they spoke at some points, or perhaps they felt too natural in a way that was just like the awkward conversations that sometimes we end up having that just feel the dialogue doesn't flow very well. Anyway, additionally, the character work in this wasn't necessarily amazing either. So if you're going into this looking for a strong characterization and you're just exploring this event through the eyes of these great people, it's really not offering that. So I couldn't give it higher than a 4 stars because it had enough to it that made it where, as a novel, I wouldn't necessarily say it's great. Basically, I would not suggest this to someone who is looking for a great novel to read. I don't think that's what this provides. However, I also could not give it lower than a 4 stars because I sobbed multiple times reading this. I would have included some footage of me reading it, and I did get a little bit teary-eyed in that footage. Well, I stopped that footage, and then about 5 to 10 minutes later, I was literally sobbing at something that ended up happening. So obviously the emotional investment was there, but a lot of that has to do with just my emotional investment in the Titanic as an event in and of itself. This is one historical event that just really gets to me and really makes me emotional. Like, I started tearing up as soon as we're on the Carpathia, which actually the sinking of the Titanic, it doesn't take very long to get to that. So if you're wanting a book that's really just like going straight into that, that's what this does. And really, I feel like the purpose of this book wasn't necessarily to be a great novel. I feel like the purpose of this book is to show respect and honor to the people involved in this tragedy, to those who died, obviously, also those who survived, as well as those on the Carpathia, the captain himself, as well as the crew members and even some of the passengers. And I felt like Rebecca Connolly did that in a really wonderful way. So if I would say this is a great book for people who are interested in the Titanic, who like learning about it. You may end up feeling more attached to the characters than I did. I will say the captain I was more attached to than Kate Connolly. I just felt like I got to know him a little bit better. I just didn't feel like we really got to see much personal emotion and feeling from Kate for reasons that are kind of brought up in the book, but because of that I wasn't able to get emotionally attached to her either. But like I said, the respect and honor that Rebecca Connolly shows to this event and to these people was beautiful. I felt like it's really hard to, how do I want to put this? When I watched the film Titanic directed by James Cameron, I really enjoy it. But I feel like sometimes there's more focus put on the ship as a being as opposed to all of the people who are suffering on it. Not that there's none of that focus, because obviously Jack and Rose are central to that. We're seeing a lot of these really touching moments with the band and other people, but there is kind of this sense of like the ship as like this great character in a lot of ways, which isn't a bad thing. But it is the way this story is told. I felt like there was honor shown to the ship itself, just because by nature there is, that should be there on some level. But I feel like there was a lot more focus on the people involved, and the way that was done was just very well drawn in my mind. And overall, as a person who really is fascinated by the Titanic, but also very moved by the event of the Titanic, I really enjoyed this for all of that. I feel like if you're interested in the Titanic, like I said, this is a great book to read. And if you've learned a decent amount about the Titanic, it's fun because there's a lot of, I don't want to say cameos, but kind of cameos of people like you would have heard of, like Molly Brown. We also see some references to some other figures that were on the ship. They reference some of the mythology around the ship. For example, one thing is that so the main character can't really hear it, but a couple of her friends mentioned hearing the band playing, and she can't hear it. It's far enough away, it's faint enough from where they are that she can't really hear it, but her friends are talking about hearing it. And they mention, after they've gotten away, they mentioned hearing Nearer My God to Thee being played. And so just things like that are really touching. So yes, I should probably stop there so that this vlog isn't an eternity long, because this clip is already a little bit on the long side. But suffice it to say, if you like the Titanic, I think this is a great read. Just don't go into it expecting it to be a great novel, because like I said, the writing and the characterization had some things to be desired in my mind, but that didn't bother me because I was emotionally invested in the event itself, and I felt like Rebecca Connolly showed the needed respect and honor to this event and to the people involved. That is it. Let me know down below if you've read any of these books, what you thought about them. I hope one day I'll be able to do something like this again and actually succeed, get to 24 hours. It just didn't work out. I think part of it is that, first of all, I'm living with my family now, and they're just distracting in a good way. I love them, but they are a bit distracting, so it makes it harder to focus. Plus, as I've just gotten older, I have a harder time focusing for long periods of time. So, I mean, probably compared to a lot of other people in the world, I do pretty well, but I used to be able to easily spend the whole day reading and not really take any breaks, but now I can go like an hour or two, and then I need a break for a while, and then I can come back. So between all of that, I think that's why I wasn't able to quite make it, but I do think it's possible if I really dedicate myself to it in the future sometime. We'll see if that ever happens, but I'm gonna end this here. So again, thank you for watching. I hope you're having a wonderful day, a wonderful reading month, and I will see you next time. Bye!